Always a pleasure to be with my family.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, I don't know why I'm so excited today. There's a lot of food we're serving this morning, so I'm very. It's like an a la carte. So
absolutely,
it's so hot.
absolutely.
All right, there's definitely a lot to talk about on the show this morning. At some point, we're going to have our newspaper review where Ibrahim brings us all the headlines from the newspapers, and then we have an interview where we speak about oil and gas. We get to speak about it on the show, and then later on, we're going to go to FCT Abuja where we get the brief from Abuja, and then we'll come back to Lagos where we do trending, everything trending. We get to bring it to you and we dissect it on this table. So please grab your cup of coffee and let's have a fantastic show. We'll start with the story where Vice President Shettima has called for urgent UN reforms, including a permanent Security Council seat for Africa's debt relief for developing nations, fairer sharing of natural resources, wealth, and closing the digital divide. Now, he said this while representing President Bola Tinubu at the UN General Assembly.
We support the drive to rationalize structures and end the duplication of responsibilities and programs so that this institution may speak with one voice and act with greater coherence. Madam President, Africa, none of us in this world can function peacefully in isolation. This is the heavy burden of sovereignty. Sovereignty is a covenant of shared responsibility, a recognition that our survival is bound to the survival of others. To live up to this charge, we must work hand in hand with our neighbors and partners. We must follow the trails of weapons, of money, and of people. For these forces, too often driven by faceless non-state actors, ignite the fires of conflict across our region.
Now, we know the main aim of the UN is to promote peace and unity, and it's beautiful to see the Vice President. He was speaking on behalf of the President. He raised so many issues that we're going to be talking about. He raised security, he raised debt, he spoke about AI as well, which is something I'm going to bring to you, Ibrahim, because, you know, and when it comes to AI at TVC, you know, we're pioneers. We love, you know, artificial intelligence. But he said a lot, and one thing that he really said that caught my attention is security, because at the end of the day, I think that's the most vital part for every economy, a good security system. And he spoke about that as well. A lot of people have spoken about the speech online. We've seen a lot of comments, some positive, some negative. But if you ask me, I think he spoke on things that are very important, especially talking about security and also talking about artificial intelligence.
Oh, yes. And apart from security and artificial intelligence, what I see, what I take from the speech, the whole speech, is that it was a very bold speech. Yeah. And I really appreciated him saying that. And when I say him, it translates to President Bola Tinubu. I like the fact that he did not only speak about Nigeria, he spoke about Africa, you know, and when it comes to the debts in African countries' own debts, he gave them suggestions on how to settle this debt issue in Africa, asking for debt relief and so on. He also looked at the United Nations in the face and told them that, look, your influence is dwindling. If United Nations is 80 years and the basic reason why the United Nations was formed is for peace all over the world. But with the things that are happening right now, it looks as if the United Nations is not doing what it is supposed to do, and called the United Nations to order there. He spoke about the need for African resources to be enjoyed by Africans. You know, that was quite interesting to me. And a lot of people will believe that if you have coal in your backyard, you should be the beneficiary of it. But with the way things are calibrated internationally, you might not just be take care of the lion's share of whatever your resource is. So he spoke on that and so many other things. As I said, holistically, for me, it was a bold speech. It was a kind of speech that if your president makes that speech, you can hit your chest and be proud and say, yes, that's my president.
Exactly. You know, like I said earlier on, I think I love how bold he was, how eloquent, you know, he was while he was giving that speech. He was very eloquent. He didn't miss any words, and that was it for me. He's a very good talker. And but, you know, some of the things he spoke about are things that are affecting us. You know, we speak about debt. The other day, yesterday we're talking about the fact that if you borrow, you should know how you will pay back. I know we're speaking about debt relief as well. We're speaking about AI. You know, I love the fact that he mentioned that, because the world is going to the digital platform. If we are honest, at this time, everybody's using the digital platform, and he got to speak about that as well. But we're saying UN at 80, and I really pick from what Shettima just said. You know, they're 80 years old, and at the end of the day, there's so many things that they should have done that we are not really seeing. And this is not me saying they're not doing a fantastic job, but I'm Oliver Twist. I always ask for more, that more can be done. Olamide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, 80 years on the United Nations, it wasn't formed, unfortunately, with us in mind. Right now, Africa makes up just over 25% of UN member states. And so at the time when the UN was put into place, it was just after World War II. And so Africans weren't really at the forefront of their thought. When we look at what the Vice President addressed, debt, he addressed artificial intelligence. It was very forward thinking. But I wanted to focus on security. And we don't have enough security seats in Africa at all. We needed permanent seats. And so it's a shame that Africa has been excluded from these permanent membership of security seats in the UN. I want us to focus on that. I think we need international aid to battle our insecurity. And I wanted to see more of a focus on that. But as usual, very eloquent. I couldn't have thought of a better person to represent
I know.
At that speech.
I know.
And when Africa speaks, when Nigeria speaks, the world listens. We are an African giant. And so it was good to see that he touched all bases.
We're African giants. That's no one is dragging that with us. That's for us. But Ibrahim, like Olamide has said, security is a very vital part in every economy. If your security is shaky, no matter what you do, because the safety of the people is very paramount. And I like the fact that he touched that. But before I want you to touch on security, I also want you to touch on artificial intelligence, because I wasn't expecting him to mention that, but he choked it into the speech.
Yeah, it actually stemmed from the fact that, first of all, let me say kudos to him, because, he spoke truth to power, and the other world leaders, united in speaking, except that US went there to probably embarrass itself in the way the president arrogantly presented his speech, not giving respect to or regard to others. But I love the fact that the people who are there, the meaningful people, the well-mannered people, actually spoke with one voice. So watching the vice president, speaking at the United Nations, I felt very proud as a Nigerian. And then also saying that we should close the digital divide, because the AI thing that is coming, that has actually arrived, because we're seeing AI and its manifestations. What is powering AI is, talk about the chip, talk about the rare earth that is powering AI is from Africa. They take most of these minerals from Africa, and then outside of Africa, process it and use it to their own advantage, said to us, something that is not, controlled by them. So saying that we should work as, rather than multipolarism that is now coming, to the world, what we need to do is multilateralism. So much so that you have all the countries, partnering together, working together in unison, which is the resounding thread of the United Nations. So if we are having that as a world, then we will know that yes, United Nations is living up to its expectations. So for the security thing that you mentioned, we see the president, the vice president, clamoring for permanent seats, and we know that the UN is also formed by the winners of the Second World War. Talk about the US, UK, France, China, and one other country that is not, France, coming all together. So much so that whenever they take a decision, one of these countries will veto whatever resolution that they do, just to ensure balance. But now we are seeing that they are now doing this to their own personal interest.
We have to remember that this is the second time that Shettima is representing Nigeria at UNGA. He was there in UNGA 78 in 2023. And I would have liked to see, it almost feels like we're talking about the same things. But it's great to see that there was a little bit of change in his speech.
At the end of the day, we just want to see change. I always say it's beautiful to make great speeches, but at the end of the day, let's see the change. And that change we want to see from UN, because UN, you're to promote peace and unity, and that's what we want.